One October morning, Percy was heading to Callan Castle. Along the way, Percy stopped at Lower Teignmouth Station to pick up some passengers. "Get in quickly, please," said Percy. But whilst he was waiting, Bulgy arrived and called out to the passengers. "Oi, you're making a big mistake here. That little green engine is unreliable. Just take a look at me. I'm very dependable." But the passengers ignored Bulgy. "When will your hatred towards the railway ever end?" Percy asked crossly. "Never. Down with railways," shouted Bulgy, and drove away. God, wish you could have stayed as a mobile vegetable stand. Throughout the day, Bulgy didn't get a single passenger and was very cross. "Sooner or later, railways will be ripped up," he said to himself. But as Bulgy was heading home, something caught his eye. It was another double-decker bus. He was painted blue. He had a nameplate as well. It read Rupert. He had a miserable look on his face. "Strange," thought Bulgy. "I wasn't told that a new double-decker bus would be arriving." Bulgy was just about to introduce himself. But then the blue double-decker bus was driving away. "Ah, that's all right. I'll talk to him later," said Bulgy. Bulgy arrived back at the bus depot. "Why are you so happy?" asked Bertie. "I just saw a new bus today," said Bulgy. "And you know what that means?" "No," said Bertie. "It means, my dear Bertie, that more and more buses will be coming and will replace every single engine." Bertie rolled his eyes. "For some reason, he looked unhappy," continued Bulgy. "Still, once Rupert gets to know us, he'll be much happier." Suddenly, Bertie's eyes widened. Did you say Rupert?" he asked. "Why, yes," said Bulgy. "After all this time, he's back," grumbled Bertie. "He's been here before?" asked Bulgy. "Aye, he was your replacement," explained Bertie. "Replacement? Then why haven't I seen him before after all this time?" grumbled Bulgy. Bertie let out a deep sigh. "Brace yourself. It's a long, unpleasant story," explained Bertie. And this was the story. Long ago, a few months after Bulgy was taken out of service and turned into a henhouse, a new double-decker bus had arrived. This was, of course, Rupert. I'm sorry to say that Rupert was just like Bulgy, if not worse, rude and very cocky. One morning, Thomas was at Knapford Station, and nearby him was Rupert. He watched furiously as the passengers boarded Annie and Clarabel. "This is despicable," snorted Rupert. "Why would anyone travel in some old beach huts on wheels, pulled by an outdated steam kettle?" Annie and Clarabel were offended, and Thomas was furious. "Why would anyone travel in a vile, bad-tempered bus?" he retorted. Before Rupert could reply, the guard's whistle blew, and Thomas puffed away. By the time Rupert got back to the bus depot, he received an urgent message. Thomas had broken down at Knapford Crossing, and Rupert was to ask to pick up the passengers. At the crossing, the passengers were waiting patiently for Rupert. Duck arrived to take Thomas to the works. As Duck coupled up to Thomas, Rupert drove up. The passengers climbed aboard, and Rupert laughed. "Not so useful now, are you?" And he drove away. Oh, that's all we need. Another horrid bus, grumbled Duck. Well, that's rotten Rupert for you, said Thomas. The next day, Duck was at the water tower when he heard a familiar whistle. It was Ginty. All right there, Ginty, said Duck. What brings you here? Aye, well, since Thomas will be at the works, I'll be taking over his trains for him, said Ginty. Aye, that's good. But take my tip. Watch out for Rupert, the blue double-decker bus. He's very vile. Rotten Rupert, as we called him, warned Duck. Aye, don't worry about me. If he causes any trouble for me, you'll put him in his place, said Ginty. And he chuffed away. No one could imagine what would happen next. That night, Ginty was taking a goods train to Brendam Docks. As he was approaching Gordon's Hill, the troublesome trucks saw their chance for mischief.
Hold back! Hold back! Hold back! Hold back!
They cried. Oi, stop it! Shouted Ginty, and he gave them a bump. Oi, when we get to the top, push as hard as you can, whispered the leading truck. The other trucks giggled. Meanwhile, Rupert was taking some passengers to Wordsworth Station. But then, there was trouble. He ground to a halt, right in the middle of a crossing. Bother! What a place to break down, he fumed. But there was worse to come. Out in the distance, Ginty was whistling frantically. Help! Help! Cried Ginty. On! On! Shouted the trucks. Rupert's driver tried to restart his engine, but it was no good. The passengers raced out of Rupert. So did his driver. Ginty was getting closer and closer. Horrors! Screamed Rupert. Rupert and Ginty prepared for the worst. The sound was awful. It was a miracle that the passengers and Rupert's driver got out just in time. But some trucks were in pieces. Ginty was derailed, and his buffer beam was bent, and his lamp was broken. As for Rupert, he was completely mangled. Duck arrived with the breakdown train. It wasn't long when Ginty was back on the rails. This is all my fault, Duck, cried Ginty. I said I would put Rupert in his place, and it looks like... Ginty, stop! Interrupted Duck. No one is blaming you, and it wasn't your fault at all. Duck gave the trucks an angry look. Then Sir Topham Hatt arrived. He took one look at Rupert and walked away, shaking his head. Sir, will we be getting another double-decker bus? Asked Duck. No, Duck, said Sir Topham Hatt. Double-decker buses are double-decker nuisances. Rupert was placed on a flat truck and taken to the scrapyard. It took a long time to repair Ginty, but once he was fixed, he headed off for home. He still felt terribly guilty about what happened. And that's the story, said Bertie. How dare you, bellowed Bulgy, making up a horrible story like that. Bulgy, I'm telling the truth, argued Bertie. Then why did I see him earlier today, then? Doesn't make any sense. Isn't it obvious? He's a ghost now. Rest assured, Bulgy, ghosts are real. Bulgy was so cross that he fumed away. Oh well, he'll believe me soon enough, thought Bertie. Ghosts? Pah! What did Bertie know? I'll find Rupert myself and have a nice long conversation with him, said Bulgy. Bulgy soon found Rupert. He was stuck on a level crossing and looking miserable. Hey! Don't worry, Rupert, called Bulgy. We'll get help and... Before he could finish, Bulgy heard Duck's whistle. Bulgy rang his bell to warn Duck, but it was no use. Duck was approaching the level crossing, and there he saw Rupert. "Cinders and ashes!" cried Duck. His driver applied the brakes, and Bulgy closed his eyes. Nothing happened. Bulgy opened his eyes. He could see that Rupert was gone. Duck was in shock and hurried off as fast as he could. Bulgy was also in shock, so Bertie was telling the truth. All this time, Rupert is a ghost, he said to himself. Just then, Trevor arrived. He could see that Bulgy was looking pale. "What's wrong?" asked Trevor. "You look like you've just seen a ghost." I have," Bulgy whispered. Bulgy stayed silent for several days, much to the engine's relief. But on certain nights, Bulgy would hear Rupert's horn. Rupert was once a double-decker bus just like him. But now, he is the spirit of the roads.